हाय एंड वेलकम टू माय शो। दोस्तों, अगर हॉरर से डर लगता है तो ये प्रोग्राम मत देखना आप। फ्रेंड्स, हॉरर स्टोरीज हैव अ ग्रेट मार्केट एंड हॉरर स्टोरीज also have a long life. The book that I'm going to relate to you today is Psycho. I'm sure you must have heard about it. बहुत डरावनी किताब है। Psycho was written in the year 1959 by American author Robert Bloch. The book is so very scary that one might even feel scared meeting its author. The novel is widely recognized as Bloch's most illustrious work, so intensely written that even while narrating to you, even when I'm telling you this story, now I'm getting a feeling as if someone is standing behind me. मेरे पीछे कोई खड़ा है और आपके पीछे. The book was later adapted into Alfred Hitchcock's seminal 1960 film of the same name and was loosely adopted into the Bates Motel television series of 2013-2017. Bloch later wrote two sequels which are unrelated to any of the film sequels. The novel tells us the story of a person by the name of Norman Bates, caretaker of an isolated motel who struggles under his domineering mother and gets embroiled in a series of murders. Norman Bates is the main protagonist of this novel, who traces his struggle with insanity, particularly split personality disorder. In the novel, Norman is described as in mid-40s, overweight, pale and balding. As a child, Norman had an extraordinary or extremely dysfunctional, even abusive relationship with his mother that forever changed his ability to relate normally in society. As an adult, Norman lives alone with his mother and runs the Bates Motel. When the novel opens, Norman is reading about Oedipus situation or complex. So friends, I guess everybody understands Oedipus complex. It's a kind of a complex by virtue of which a male child falls in love with his mother. So that's what we call Oedipus complex. So this person is reading about Oedipus complex with a hope of understanding more about his strange relationship with his mother. It's clear that Norman's relationship with his mother was deeply affected the way he views all women, particularly women to whom he is sexually attracted. Norman drinks as an excuse to block the strange voices coming to his head, arguably his mother's voice telling him that he is good for nothing and reminding him that he is impotent. Now, all in all, Psycho is a horror story of Norman Bates and his strange relationship with his mother and the motel he runs on the side of a deserted highway. So it's a very scary story, and I am sure you might have seen the movie, but yet I am relating this story to you just to refresh you. The novel opens with an image of a 40-year-old Norman Bates reading in his office. His mother approaches and scolds him for reading filthy material. The two get into a vicious fight is when the mother lambasts Norman royally. So mother lambasts Norman royally. He is too weak and too afraid to stand up to her. She challenges everything of Norman, from his social skills to his sexual choices, while he silently takes the abuse. In his head, however, he imagines the release he would feel if he could kill his mother, but the buzzer ringing at the front door breaks him from his reveries. Someone needs a room in the motel. The woman who needs a room her name is Mary Crane, has just driven across several states in the pouring rain. Norman doesn't know that Mary Crane has stolen some $40,000 from her real estate boss. She hopes to meet Sam Loomis, her fiance, with whom she's having a long distance relationship, and with his money she wants to settle his debts and start a married life together. After getting lost on the highway, Mary pulls into the Bates Motel and asks for a room. Norman, who has clearly never interacted with young women, slyly asks Mary up to the house for dinner. She accepts, but when she hears of a horrific and seemingly abusive relationship that Norman has with his mother, she gently suggests that Norman put his mother in an institution. This idea outrages Norman, who shouts and screams that his mother is normal, she is not crazy. Mary quietly excuses herself and returns to her room and vows to return the money she's stolen so that she doesn't end up being tortured by guilt. Moments later, an old woman enters Mary's room while she is in a shower and beheads her. So, she is killed. In the moments before Mary was murdered, Norman had been watching her undress through a peephole in his office. He was drinking at the time and passed out in his chair. He awoke to find Mary's corpse and immediately suspected his mother to be the murderer. He momentarily considers letting mother go to the prison, but the very thought of being separated from her is too much for him. He knows he must protect her, help cover up her crimes. Norman methodically cleans up the murder scene just as he remembers cleaning up the scene with mother and Uncle Joe. All those years ago. So, in other words, this guy Norman remembers the way he had cleaned his mother and Uncle Joe some years ago. He deposits Mary's corpse and the car into the sinkhole behind the motel and assumes he has got away with the murder. Meanwhile, Mary's old boss, Mr. Lowry, hires a private detective to track Mary in order to recover his $40,000 that she had stolen. The detective, his name is Mr. Arbogast, traces Mary to the motel and now stands knocking at the door, demanding to speak with Norman or his mother. Moments later, the same mysterious figure, who appears to be an old woman, attacks Arbogast and slits his throat. Norman deposits Arbogast's body and the car in the same sinkhole where he had deposited Mary's body. Unfortunately for Norman, Mary Crane's little sister, Lila, by now had grown suspicious of her sister's disappearance. She meets up with Sam Loomis. Sam Loomis is Mary's boyfriend, to search for her. They too trace Mary back to the Bates motel. Lila is now convinced that something terrible has happened to Mary in the motel only. She notifies the local sheriff, but he insists that she is wrong. He tells her that Norman Bates is harmless and that his mother had been dead for years now after she poisoned herself and her lover, Uncle Joe. Unconvinced, Lila arranges for Sam Loomis to distract Norman while she explores the house searching for clues. Although Sam does his best to distract Norman, he drops his guard when Norman smashes a whiskey bottle over Sam's head, and this is how this guy acts. He is nutty, knocking him unconscious. Meanwhile, as Lila explores the house, she finds a tiny, shriveled woman whom she assumes is Mrs. Bates. But as she approaches, she discovers that the woman is actually a taxidermal corpse, or you could say a stuffed corpse, a stuffed dead body. Norman appears behind Lila, dressed in his mother's clothes and speaking in a high affected tone, saying, "I am Norma Bates." I am Norma Bates. He raises a butcher's knife and pounces on Lila, but Sam, who wakes up from his stupor, manages to wrestle Norman away from her and hold him there until he is arrested. In the weeks that follow, it is discovered that Norman murdered his mother and her lover, Uncle Joe. To mask the guilt he felt over the murders, Norman developed a split personality in which mother became his alternate self. At the trial, Normal is found to be insane and is institutionalized, or you could say imprisoned in a house prison for life. So this is what happened to Norman. He was actually a psycho case, and it all happened because in the manner that his mother treated him during his childhood. So, friends, it's a very interesting book, and I'm sure you must have seen the movie. And considering the time it was written, I would rate this book at least 8 out of 10. So, friends, if you liked my show, kindly share it and also subscribe to our channel by pressing the red icon. Also, don't forget to press the bell so that you are notified each time we upload a video. So, goodbye and see you soon.